7. Good outside the switch. Doncic goes on.
What's going on, guys? Welcome in to Clutch B-Ball TV. I hope you guys are having an amazing day or night. And today I'm going to be talking about Kevin Knox because his future is uncertain with the New York Knicks. And you guys are probably wondering, like, Noah, what are you talking about? Why are you making this video? Well, there's a lot of speculation that he may be traded at the deadline, and of course, he is out of the rotation. Tom Thibodeau even came out and said that, especially with a guy like Reggie Bullock coming back from injury, him getting back into the starting lineup. Then you have a guy of Alec Burks who has good production off the bench, and it just does not look pretty whatsoever for Kevin Knox. And we know Tom Thibodeau loves those shorter types of rotations. He'll even play for like an RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson in the game with like 1 minute left when we're up 30 in the fourth quarter. That's something I've never loved with Tom Thibodeau whatsoever. But you think of Tom Thibodeau, the best players he's coached, or Tom Thibodeau types of players, he loves those defensive-minded guys and he loves the mentally tough players. And does Kevin Knox bring that to the table? Does he have that killer instinct? Does he have a consistent motor? No. And what does he bring to the table when his shot is not falling? It was falling at the beginning of the season, but then it started to really rail off or fall off the tracks like last season, and the defense has gotten better. He's less flat-footed. You could see Tom Thibodeau, Kenny Payne, Johnny Bryant, the whole coaching staff has really worked with him when it's come to the defense side of the basketball, but his passing instincts, like keeping his head up, reading the floor isn't great. Like, he still looks down when he dribbles. Like, his handle needs a lot of work still, and he may settle for a deep two sometimes there, but it's not there really anymore in his arsenal, shooting the deep twos. That was definitely a big concern coming out of Kentucky. But yeah, there's some rumors that he may be dealt at the trade deadline. There's some people in the organization that are really not big fans of Kevin Knox, but we also have to look at the realistic side of it when we went on to draft him. As we're going to be breaking down the seasons, the pre-draft process, him at Kentucky, the truth behind Kevin Knox, and why he has not been successful in a New York Knicks uniform. I would definitely love seeing him go to like a lower market type of team that fits his personality more. In my opinion, can he deal with New York? Like, I think he could deal with the media, but I don't think Knicks fans will really like him, like, moving forward, because he's not really a mentally tough player. He's not a guy that's going to consistently dive after loose balls and make the right basketball play. Hopefully he can grow into that. You have to keep in mind this man was drafted at 18 years old. But getting into the pre-draft process, when you look at him at Kentucky, he's definitely a guy that jumped up mock drafts like towards the later side of like when the draft was coming up. Not a guy that was like in the top 10s at the beginning when there was mock drafts coming up, because he's a potential guy. These potential high upside guys are always very scary because you got to like get it right. You have to make sure they have no character concerns. You have to make sure they have a good head on their shoulders and they desperately want to be great. That's the thing with Knox. Does he have that killer instinct? Does he really want to be great? Yes, he had this talent of being able to shoot the ball from the outside, but he wasn't crazy fast. He was caught flat-footed. Like, this man literally had tunnel vision, wasn't a great playmaker, would turn the ball over a lot. His handle would be sloppy. There's a reason why the Knicks literally just had him sitting in the corner this season, because his handle's so sloppy. He can't finish tough at the rim. Like, he would avoid contact. But he was definitely taken to be, like, hopefully, like, a star one day. He was taken to be this high upside guy at 18 years old. But I blame the Knicks. I don't just blame Kevin Knox. Like, you think about it, they misused this dude in the worst like situation or the worst way possible. They did not come in with the right developmental plan. Like, David Fizdale is not a good developmental coach. You trust David Fizdale to develop Kevin Knox, a guy that does not hold players accountable, he does not run a system properly. He's just not a good coach. He doesn't make adjustments whatsoever. But yeah, at Kentucky, he was a good scorer. He wasn't crazy efficient, but you saw how like smooth his shot looked from the outside. But he would take deep twos, but he did have a nice floater in the lane, which helped him out for not being the greatest like physicality-wise at the basket. For sure, but you liked like his high scoring upside, but the defense was definitely a concern. His basketball IQ, having lapses. Does he have that fire and desire, as Walt Frazier would say? But in the pre-draft process or whatever, I thought he would go to a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. I thought he would go definitely to one of those later teams like the Los Angeles Clippers. No one really cares about the Clippers passing on like Michael Porter Jr. anymore, which we'll get to later because they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. So they're kind of irrelevant in this situation. Of course, they went on to draft Jerome Robinson, who freaking sucks, and then they drafted on Miles Bridges, who went on to be traded to the Hornets. And you know, that whole swap, Shea was there and then traded to the Thunder, and that whole big trade that went down. But I liked Knox's scoring upside, but I really questioned, like, is he going to dive after loose balls? Like, does he have a high motor? Is he going to bring that to the table? And apparently in the Knicks workout, it was Mikal Bridges, Kevin Knox, and Miles Bridges. Kevin Knox absolutely swept the floor when it came to Mikal Bridges and Miles Bridges, and that's so funny to hear because they're better players than them. Specifically, Mikal Bridges, he's way better, one of the best 3-and-D players in the NBA, and he's contributing very nicely to his Suns team that may go on to make the playoffs. And Miles Bridges is kind of doing his thing as well, very athletic, but I got the upside with Knox. He has so much talent, he just has to put it all together, but they did not have the right developmental plan for this kid whatsoever, Kevin Knox, coming out. We went on to draft him, of course, with the 9th overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. There was guys like Mikal Bridges on the board who I wanted, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Miles Bridges, of course. There was kind of a joke the Bridges brothers, because those guys could have went back to back or whatever. It was funny how Mikal Bridges was drafted by the 76ers. His mom worked for them at one point and then traded on draft night. If the 76ers held on to him, that would have been an amazing pick, but they traded him for Zaire Smith, who's out of the league, kind of this project athletic guy. But then there was Michael Porter Jr., who some people thought was going top 3. But of course, the big injury concerns, I'm not going to put that on the Knicks. So the Clippers passed on him with back-to-back picks. There was other teams that passed on him. But you have to keep in mind, they were saying this man may never play basketball again. They thought his back injury was that severe, so I'm not going to put that on the New York Knicks. And could you just imagine the New York media with Michael Porter Jr., when is this guy going to play and everything like that? So he went on to swing for the fences, go after Kevin Knox, hopefully be a star one day. And Kevin Knox, in Summer League, he was booed by Knicks fans. Some Knicks fans did not like it. There was that one, Knicks kid that booed him. Just, I don't get the booing. It's just annoying. Whoever we draft, I may be, upset inside, but I'll never boo someone, whatsoever. I want them to succeed at the end of the day if they're a New York Knick. But Kevin Knox, I was okay with the pick. I liked the high scoring upside because we needed a guy that was going to bring a lot of scoring to the table. But I was we also need defense. I heard this kid can't play defense whatsoever. But entering the Summer League, this kid was balling out. The Summer League hype was insane. He was getting comparisons to freaking Kevin Durant, Paul George. The efficiency wasn't there, though, and the defense was not there, though. He was averaging over 20, but it was on terrible efficiency. He's shooting pretty solid from downtown. He's had solid touch around the rim as well, but he didn't really have a turnaround shot, didn't have a hook shot in his arsenal, but he was special. 7-foot wingspan, 6'9". His height, people were oh my gosh, this next Paul George we're looking at, and he's only 18 years old, only about to be 19 or whatever. But then you saw him match up against a decent NBA player in Semi Ojeleye. The physicality really messed with him. He was not playing well. He was just really inefficient. And I was all right, people have to mellow with this hype. But I was getting excited. He would always struggle in the first half, but I was this kid could bounce back from adversity, and he was killing it in the second half of basketball games. As Kevin Knox started to come back down to earth during the preseason, because he was playing up against starting caliber players, playing the Washington Wizards in his very first preseason game. And I thought it was very interesting that David Thibodeau gave a guy like Kevin Knox, who was known as this project, being drafted at 18 years old. Yes, he has the physical tools and he has some talent, but he hasn't put it all together yet. So it is crazy how they kind of threw Kevin Knox in the fire right away. But I guess it was a washed year when you have guys like Mario Hezonja, Emmanuel Mudiay, Noah Vonleh on the roster. They're F it, I don't care. But again, I did not think David Thibodeau was the right coach for Kevin Knox. He's a guy that did not hold him accountable whatsoever, did not play him throughout his strengths. There was no structure whatsoever when it came to David Thibodeau as the coach of the New York Knicks. But yes, he struggled big time in the preseason because he was playing up against legitimate NBA talents. He couldn't really keep up with collegiate threes. What made people think he was really going to keep up with NBA threes right away, or even struggling against some guys in the Summer League that are probably currently in the G League right now. But yeah, like I said, he had that wake-up call in the Celtics game like I mentioned earlier. But yeah, he was struggling. He was taking deep twos. His handle was really sloppy. He has a lot of work to do. But yeah, everything came back down to earth when he struggled in that preseason game, or when he struggled in the preseason as a whole. I thought it was very interesting how David Thibodeau just threw out Kevin Knox in the starting lineup like that. Yes, he played well in the Summer League, but at the end of the day, even if that team was so trash, that New York Knicks team of guys like Emmanuel Mudiay, Mario Hezonja, Noah Vonleh, and even more, even though it was trash, I thought it was really interesting how Knox didn't really earn his minutes. They just threw him out there. I'm not saying Mario Hezonja was like any better or anything like that. Hezonja was awful as a Knick, but I personally thought Mario Hezonja was better. I believe when it came to the depth chart, he was behind Kevin Knox when it came to the 3 position, but they really threw Kevin Knox out there. Like, this man was drafted to be someone long-term. He has to earn his minutes. Like, David Thibodeau was not the right coach for him. No structure, did not hold him accountable, did not play him throughout his strengths whatsoever, but Knox really struggled. Like I said, when he had that wake-up call against the Celtics, like, he actually played up against a legitimate NBA player. He's not as fast, or he wasn't able to blow by him as much or as fast because that was just, like, weak part of his game in college. Like, he's not crazy fast, and if he gets shut off, like, he doesn't have the strength to bully anyone. He doesn't have good vision. He turns the ball over a lot, takes deep twos, and he's just not really in the position to be successful whatsoever as a player that's coming into the NBA, being drafted at 18 years old. That definitely did not help his case. He had a nice couple plays when it came to playing the Washington Wizards as a starter, playing some true NBA caliber players now, not some guys in the summer league that are eventually going to be in the G League, or some rookies. Like, he played some guys that aren't even in the NBA anymore, but playing up against this Washington Wizards team, the physicality really scared him. He was not playing a smart brand of basketball. He was looking down when he was dribbling. His handle definitely not on the string. It's very shaky. But he had a nice couple plays, like in transition, nice pull-up jumper, went coast to coast, but his defense looked even worse than Summer League because he was actually playing up against faster, more physical guys, and he ended up being benched. He did not start the regular season. Eventually, he did earn his spot because, like, the team was so bad. So he did start. He had some good games, and he had some awful games. Like, he had games he turned the ball over like crazy. Even in Summer League, he turned the ball over, 8 times one game? Despite putting up like 30 points against the Lakers, he still turned the ball over like absolutely crazy. But we expected growing pains. This dude was young. He's a rookie. He was drafted at 18 years old. We knew the flaws of his game. And again, the Knicks, if they expected this dude to be good right away, I don't know what to say. They are stupid. The Knicks organization of Steve Mills, Scott Perry, who agreed on that draft pick, are truly stupid at the end of the day. But yeah, he had a nice couple, like, great scoring games of like 31 points. Were they the most efficient? No. He had like a clutch game, kind of a clutch game, hit some big shots down the stretch, and actually had a nice block on Brook Lopez. 26-point game. But you understand why the Knicks drafted him. Long wingspan, 6'9", 6'10". Didn't really have the dog in him though, but I get the offensive upside. But yes, you pretty much put up okay numbers, terrible efficiency, averaged like 12.8 points. Terrible efficiency, wasn't a good playmaker, really struggled on defense, caught really flat-footed, had bad shot selection, but the floater in the lane looked pretty in my opinion. But yes, you saw somewhat of an improvement, but you're like, it's really hard to analyze Knox's rookie year because Fizdale's such a bad coach. The roster around him is just absolute trash, and it was just very hard to like really analyze that. Like I said, he had a big game of 31 points up against 76ers, but it was a high volume night. Like, he has to take a lot of shots in order to score a lot of points. And I get it, you could say that's like with a lot of NBA players, but just the shots he was taking were very unquality shots. He wasn't finishing at the basket very well whatsoever. He would fade away from contact. But entering his second year, I thought that was one of the most crucial years of Kevin Knox's NBA career with the Knicks. It was a big-time mental test. We brought in Marcus Morris at free agency. Originally, he was going to planning to sign with the Spurs. Then he came over to the New York Knicks. We gave him a little more money. Marcus Morris stepped in as a starter right away. I was like, here we go. I freaking love this. Might light a fire under Kevin Knox. Then he's going to look freaking amazing. Yeah, Marcus Morris, great player for us. 18 points per game. We ended up trading him, and it actually looks like a good trade. We got Emmanuel quickly out of it. Even though Morris is a good player, he wasn't a part of the future at the end of the day, and we wanted to give him up to a championship caliber team of the Clippers. Of course, they did fall short, blowing a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets. Of course, quickly looks like a freaking beast with the value. We got him at 25. But yeah, I was like, this is going to light a fire under him. It's going to be awesome. It's really a good test to see if he's really good when it comes to his mental, of how strong mentally he is. But yeah, when Knox came in the game, he looked worse defensively. Like, his shot looked worse. Like, he just looked so soft out there. It looked like he did not want it whatsoever, Kevin Knox. Like, he started off the season kind of strong, though. It looked like he had a nice role of shooting the ball very well. And then he just tailored off. He was just absolute trash the rest of the season, because when his shot's not falling, the rest of his game is just non-existent. There's nothing else that's there. When his shot's not falling, his confidence just freaking dips. He doesn't attack. There's no motor. He just has one of the most inconsistent motors I've ever seen. Like, he may have a couple games that his motor's high, but besides that, It's just, he was just absolutely abysmal. But I do understand how his confidence just could drop like freaking crazy when, like, yes, he didn't start first couple games, but then he did end up getting a lot of action his rookie year, going from like averaging 20-something minutes, high 20s of minutes per game to like freaking like, what was it, 16, 17? He did not average a lot of minutes the second year. So I understand the confidence from a young player. Him just waking up every day like, yeah, I'm freaking starting to like, I have to sit behind Marcus Morris now, and I wish that was my opportunity. But Kevin Knox, does he have that grit and grind mentality of, I'm going to take that job, I freaking want it? That was the thing with Knox. Like, there's things to blame on Knox or put on Knox, and then there's things not to put on Knox. Like, they didn't do a good job really analyzing, playing him throughout his strengths and putting him in the position to be successful. The developmental plan was awful, but then there was also things like, does Knox really want to be great? There's no fire in him when we see him on the court. Like, what is he doing out there on the basketball court? And such a crucial, disappointing year when it came to Kevin Knox. Even when David Thibodeau went on to be fired, Mike Miller didn't play him a lot. You would see what Knox is and how frustrated Mike Miller would get, but that's what's going to happen when you draft a very young player. All players, they grow at certain times. Like, some may freaking bloom, become an all-star right away. Knox might take a few years. John Calipari even came out and said that, and that's the reality. Knox was going to take years to develop as a basketball player, as a person, his body growing and developing as well. But just a very disappointing second year. When it came to his handles, still didn't look great. He didn't have like a turnaround jumper in his arsenal. It didn't look like he added anything, and he just had no mentality of killer, I'm gonna go out there and freaking ball out type of mentality. But I get it, he's a rookie, and that's tough on someone when you're just so used to getting those minutes and then you don't get them anymore. And then entering this third year under Tom Thibodeau, you could say this is big time. Tom Thibodeau, defensive freaking minded. You gotta love it. Also, if you want to say Zion Williamson freaking ripping the ball out of Kevin Knox's freaking arms and dunking it, maybe that messed with his confidence. I doubt it, but who knows? Like, that play was all over the place and everything. But entering the Tom Thibodeau season, I was like, this is perfect for Knox. Knox needs to get better defensively. You have Tom Thibodeau. Like, this is the year. You gotta start Kevin Knox. We enter with like Reggie Bullock and Alec Burks. I'm like, damn, one of those guys may start over him, especially because Tom Thibodeau freaking loves the veterans, which I'm not ranting on that right now. But I was like, this is perfect, but he may not think Kevin Knox is ready. Knox is still not ready. Like, we don't know if he'll ever be ready. That was the thing. He's either going to be really good or really bad. It all came down to if you really love the game. There's certain players that it's okay for them to come out at a certain time if they really want to be great, if they really have that fire and desire in them. Like, if Knox had dog in him, I think it'd be completely different out there on the basketball floor. But I thought he came out too early, personally, Kevin Knox. I thought he should have played another year at Kentucky. We'll see what a guy like Brandon Boston does. That should be an interesting situation, but he has more dog in him. But yeah, Kevin Knox, just like at the beginning of the season, he was leading the NBA in three-point percentage from the corner. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude found a freaking solid roll off the bench. He's playing defense. He's being aggressive. He's finishing tougher at the basket. And then he tails off. Then you see the games just like last season. It was a tease. Shooting well from outside, but then Knox's shot stopped falling. He worked with lethal shooters. Shot looked a lot more fluid. It just looked beautiful out there. His handle still wasn't great. And people complain, why is Knox only in the corner? Because these guys are coaches at the end of the day. We're just fans. They know what Knox's strong suits are. They know what he's bad at. Knox's handle's still sloppy. He turns over the ball. He's not a good passer of the basketball. You're not going to have someone dribble the ball if they can't dribble well. So that's what Knox's role was, spotting up in the corner. So yeah, they're like, what are we going to get out of this kid? He doesn't play hard. He's not a leader out there. Well, he does show flashes of playing hard, but it's really hard to get the most out of Kevin Knox when there's not much you could work with. So they did their best, and when Reggie Bullock came back and Alec Burks came back, it was really hard for Knox because they're like, Knox isn't playing well. It looks like when I'm watching Knicks games, I like forget Knox was out there sometimes, not attempting a shot in like 8 minutes. And of course, all these rumors come out about the being traded at the deadline. Of course, he doesn't have that dog in him. Does he fit New York and everything like that? So, and just like, Tom Thibodeau has those shortened rotations, like I said at the beginning of the video. But yes, I'm not going to blame everything on Kevin Knox. He had an opportunity, and then they went on to sign Marcus Morris. But if Kevin Knox is really good enough, he would be able to beat out Marcus Morris. But again, that is unfair to say because Kevin Knox is he's so young. Like, he's such a young player. Like, no one's beating out Marcus Morris. That's freaking 18, 19, what was he at the time, the second year, like 20 years old. That's like really a tough assignment. But I guess it was really a test for Kevin Knox to see how tough he was mentally, and he did not pass the test. But we knew he was this raw prospect. So you could say they mishandled him, or Knox, he may not be putting the work. Like, how much does he really love the game? But we're going to be getting into these weaknesses from NBADraft.net, and we're going to see if any of these are still in his game when you watch Kevin Knox. So it says motor can run hot and cold. I agree with that. When engaged, he is very good, but when not fully engaged, he could disappear completely. I agree with that. Sometimes you forget he's on the court. His overall game could be affected by a shot. When the shot isn't falling, he could start to lose focus, possesses poor court vision, mainly due to keeping his head down while handling the basketball. He's gotten better with that a little bit, but you see some of that in his game for sure. And he could lead to turnovers, like bad turnovers. Offensive fouls. He could play out of control. That's another thing. He could play erratic. Rarely passes the ball in transition. He likes to take like several guys on sometimes, even if it's a 3-on-1 situation. Not crazy fast. Let's see. When the offense goes through other players, he'll often coast instead of focusing on rebounding or defense. He has to work on following his shot more. Has a tendency to force or settle for long shots. Like, he's gotten better with the deep twos. He's taken that away from his arsenal, for sure. He only has one move in the post. Yeah, he doesn't really have a lot of moves in his arsenal when it comes to the post. We'll need to develop that repertoire further to have success on the low block at the next level. Not a very efficient player, although some of that is because Kentucky's reliance on him. Offensively, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another player he played alongside. Doesn't have a noticeable killer instinct or edge to him. Sometimes looks content to blend it instead of stand out. Despite having an immense amount of talent, struggles at times to create his own offense as he has difficulty getting past opponents. And sadly, none of that, like the deep twos has changed, but besides that, sadly, none of that has really changed. You could say he's gotten better, like being more physical at the basket, initiating contact, but you want to see that change. You want to see those things change. But again, like if we give up on him and he goes and he's good somewhere else, we could just say he was young. We didn't give him enough time. It's only his third season in the NBA. But I get it. They want to see that big-time improvement. You see the little things, but it's the inconsistency. We were really excited about this kid at one point. Of course, Summer League and just everything like that, but he has a lot of work to do. Hopefully he does end up carving out a good NBA career. I'm rooting for him wherever he goes, if he remains as a Knick, but it does not look good right now. But let me know down below your thoughts and analysis. And as always, guys, have a humble day or night. Peace out, y'all.